maybe Maria Ben. I don't know, Maria Ben, if you can be on the mic and if you wanted to share your experience while you were in London, then let me know and you can come in whenever you can. I know that sometimes you're not able to join through the audio, but let me know. So, sisters, how are you?
We're good. We're doing good as can be. But why is Leonard and myself not being is it a separate link from the daily one?
No, I don't know. Must be a funny WhatsApp thing. Like even the week that you first had the problem with the link, that day I could see the notice on my side. Then a few days later, I couldn't see it on my side.
Okay.
So there's something going on there. But I think generally, let's work on the basis that we're going to do this every Saturday with the same link. So
Okay.
we'll move forward like that. And then
Okay.
I think there'll be very occasionally now that we won't do it.
Yeah.
Could
Good.
we log in on a previous link that you sent?
That's right. It's the same link every week.
Oh, okay.
So that's good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, wonderful. Great that you're here. And of course, others will join when they can. So I wonder if anyone would like to start off sharing your thoughts and churnings on the moralies of the week or book messages or things you've been working on.
There was this animated movie with Daddy Kashmini, and I didn't go to work on Thursday, you know, and I tell myself because I have some days that I need to take before I actually retire. And I stayed home, and it really makes a difference when you don't have distractions. And I looked at that animated movie, although it was animated. I felt that whoever made that movie, because it would have come from Godly Work from Madhuban, and it had for me such an experience that I felt that it reinforced such a love for Daddy Prakashmani and how much she gave, how much she was the embodiment of love, next to Brahma Baba. And it is how much she gave selflessly. And it was only, as she always say, one Baba, just like that it goes. And I think for me, what that did is that it really reinforced, I don't know if it is a dedication or a love for Baba. It's not that I didn't have love, and a love for the Brahmin family and the Yagya. For me, I recognize that how fortunate we are, how fortunate we are compared to other souls within the Kalpa. And that brought a deep feeling for me. And I feel that whoever can look at that, I shared it and for my sisters who are BKs, and I don't know if they got a chance to look at it, but it really is. I don't know if you would have seen it, brother.
I haven't seen this one, but I did watch the Didi Man Mahini one, and I was also surprised how well made
Oh,
they
yeah,
are because when you see an animation, you think, well, maybe it's a bit childish, but not at all. It's a very well made animation.
and the vibrations of it was really, really, for me, I felt that really was made with a lot of love. And for me, there was a lot of power in looking at that. It's an hour and something long, but I feel it is worth looking at.
Now you've mentioned it, I definitely will, because it did come up on my YouTube dashboard, but I haven't seen it. But I had a very good experience with Didi's one, and I think they have one for Mama and also one for
Yes,
Brahma Baba. So
yes,
yes, I think, I mean, they are animations, but in the sense they're proper films, aren't they? Really, they're like proper,
yeah,
yeah, properly done.
yeah. And through that emotions you were able to feel, like for me, you know.
Yes. Well, they use the experiences shared in the classes by other daddies and dadas. has their
Yes.
script. So it's basically
Yeah.
an enactment of
Yeah.
experiences shared by others. And that's what, like, we would hear those experiences in a class format, but this is a chance to see it enacted in a play, like a play, really.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
really was good. And it gave a lot of history of some of the things that I wasn't aware of. You know, history in the Yagya itself.
Yeah. Yeah, the
It's good.
DD's one was also very informative. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. I'll definitely catch that.
And you know, one of the things, brother, I wanted to ask is that not in this class, because I don't want to take away from Daddy Prakashmani and the book messages, but I would like for you to take up the founding fathers, and in particular for me, Islam, because I don't know much history of the Islam, how it was founded and the background on that, um, because that I would like to know. You know, how Islam came about. Because even when given the course, I have always been vague with that area. You know? So maybe in one of your sessions, if you can bring that, take that up. I'd
Yeah,
like to share.
sure. Yeah, I'm sure. I think in the course, we always have to be a little cautious because we are presenting a perspective on other religions that those religions don't share about themselves.
Yeah.
So sometimes being brief is better.
Yeah, and I agree. But for myself, I think a deeper understanding of it would help in not going into the details for sure. Because even when you're given the knowledge of Christ, you really don't go one time into telling them, you know, Jesus is, is not who we think they are. He is. But for me, Islam has always been vague. Yeah, that has been vague.
Sure. And I also tend to talk a little bit more about Abraham. So, you know, the when you explain the picture of the tree, that now I must get round at some point to doing an interpretation of Dada Vishwarathan's personal account. There is an English version of his book, which maybe you've read, where it's like autobiography, really.
Yeah, a little
And
bit.
in that, he explains that when he was designing the picture of the tree of religions, the way that him and Brahmababa thought about it was that on the right side are the religions of the East established in India. So those are those branches. And then on the left side, you've got the religions established in the West. And you've got in the middle the deity religion. So you've got the Brahmins as the roots. Then you've got the golden and silver ages, which then moves into Hinduism in the middle. So that goes right the way through the middle. And it was Brahmababa who pointed out to him that there is a sequence. And when these Muralis come up, Baba speaks about the drama as being sequential. To understand the drama means to understand sequences. And he uses this word number-wise. And for many years, that was the word I used to use. But the problem with the word number-wise is we tend to view it in a rank order, like a league table. But as I've heard the Morales over the years, I have moved away from thinking of it as number-wise in terms of a rank, but more using this word sequence. So Dada Vishwarathan explains that if you look at it, you've got the deity religion in the middle, and then the first religion, the first of the major faiths, because these are picturing monotheistic faith. So the branches are monotheistic faiths. The middle is depicting polytheistic faiths. So originally, in the Copper Age, we just had polytheism everywhere. And Abraham, or Abraham, is the first father to come down. And he's from Afghanistan, or what is now Afghanistan. And he was from a family of Hindus. And so he rejects the idols. So the stories are of this rejection of idolatry, this breaking of idols, and God being this one, this. So you look, that's the first one on the left side. Then it moves across to Buddha on the right side. Then it goes across left to Christ. Then it goes across right back to Shankaracharya, I think it is, and then back to the left with Muhammad, and back to the right with Guru Nanak. So I tend to talk about them, the ones on the left, as the Abrahamic religions. So they share this monotheistic, they're all three ingrained within the Old Testament. You see, the part of India that Brahma Baba and the Dadis came from, they did not really have many or any Jewish people. Like that part of the world is Sikhism, Hinduism, and Sufism, really. And what you find is then their perception of Abraham is Ibrahim of Islam, rather than Abraham of the Jews. So there's a slight perception. So what you'll see in the older pictures is Abraham, the founder of Islam. And from that Muslim perspective, that's how they would see it. They would see the lineage going back. And so what they do, one of the questions that you can get sometimes is, how come in your pictures you've got Abraham, the founder of Islam, and then Muhammad, the founder of the Muslim religion, when they're the same thing? So that's why I tend to just approach it as these are the three Abrahamic traditions, and it brings, and you also then get sometimes people from a Jewish background feeling that Baba has left them out. But I think really it's more to do with this, just the audiences he was talking to, the part of India that they're from. There's a substantial Jewish community in Mumbai and in southern India, but not so much there in the north. And so it was just really exposure more than anything. So I tend to explain it like that because from the UK and US perspective, we call the Middle East the Middle East. But from an Indian perspective, the Middle East is the West. And so I then tend to expand on the concept of the Holy Lands, that if you look at all of these major faiths, the branches on the right are all established in India. And the branches on the left are all established in the Middle East. These major faiths are never established in any other part of the world. And so you've got these holy, and unfortunately, we end up at the end of the Iron Age with those places having religious conflicts, right? There's sectarianism is rife then. I mean, Jerusalem is an obvious example where all of the three Abrahamic faiths have a claim. And then you think in India, the controversies around a temple sharing a site with a mosque, and you think of so many places like Kashmir, don't you? And so many places where the partition, it's full of the Golden Temple, for example, the Sikhs. And so what you get is that this narrative in the Morally that we can't handle diversity. So the way the drama works is you end up with land. So he connects religion with geography. And he says that you always end up with religions claiming over land. So you have geography, pilgrimage, religion, all coming together to influence politics and language. And so you'll hear these narratives in the Morally. So I tend to explain it that way, rather than going into each individual religion and telling the story. I say, like, these ones on the right, these are the religions established in India. And if I've got a person from one of the Indian faiths in front of me, I might share a little bit more. For example, some years back, I'd given a course to someone from a Sikh background. So I would then maybe expand a little bit more on Brahma Baba and the Sindhis really learning the Sikh scriptures from heart since they were childhood. And so our Moralies are very much infused with a lot of that language. So they become very happy. And then if it's someone from a Muslim background, I might say, oh yeah, Brahma Baba, half of Brahma Baba's family were from a Sufi background, his uncles. And so we have a great appreciation. He talks a lot about the garden of Allah, the garden of flowers, because the Quran is basically the garden of Allah. It's all about the garden of heaven. And so I tend to speak about it that way. And where someone from a Jewish background, what I find intriguing is Baba slips in a little bit of Hebrew, which doesn't come across in the English transcript. And it's this word Aleph and Be, which is in the English as alpha and beta. So it's translated in the Greek. But Baba doesn't use the Greek. He doesn't use the Arabic. He doesn't use the Sanskrit. He doesn't use the Hindi. He uses the Hebrew, Aleph and Be. And so that I find intriguing. So it's almost like I feel Baba's reaching out also to the Jewish people in the Morally there as well, people from a Jewish background. And saying, look, I know you're there. But because it's a smaller faith, he tends to focus on the four great faiths. So it's the four great faiths and then Sikhism. Those are the main ones that he focuses on. And out of the four great faiths, obviously, he's focusing on Hinduism. So we can hear in the Morally, because he's unraveling it all. And even now, 99% of BKs are in India. It's for an audience. And that's right. You'll see that as time went on, Avyakt Baba sort of doesn't go so much into all the philosophical details. It's more, as Brahmins were spread around the world, he's taking up topics that everyone can relate to a little bit more. So I tend to approach it in that way. Does anyone else want to come in? Rosary Ben, great to see your smiling face there as well. I don't know, I know you give many courses. I don't know if you wanted to come in and suggest anything. I was asked, when we're a bit of a history of the Muslim religion and how it was established. So I was just, as you heard, just sharing how I usually take it up in the course.
Nothing to add. The mind is boggling at the wonders being revealed, because it's been just an element. There's been no depth in anything, and of course one tends to be talking to Westerners most of the time, or if not, giving the other one the chance to bring in what they know. So that's been the practice. But no, this is great. Sorry to arrive late, but I was listening to the narrative and getting so engrossed in that as well that came today. So lovely to join again. Thank you.
I'm fine, you went late. Thank you for being here. Yes, this morning was a little complicated, wasn't it? A little bit, you know, and this is it. It's useful to have a little bit of understanding. But I would say I didn't really go into so much of these things my first 10, 15, 20, 20 years of hearing them orally. But then over time, everything makes more sense because you're hearing them orally over and over and getting a flow of the narratives. And as I say, I think there's some interesting moralies where early on I wouldn't have really thought about it too deeply, where Baba speaks about history and geography. And I remember early on hearing from Sister Sidesh that she would ask the class, okay, which of the pictures of the course relates to history and which one to geography? So shall I ask you all that question and see if you got an answer? See, she used to ask us in the morally class in London. Which one is history? Which one is geography?
Tree, human world tree.
Which one? History or geography?
History.
Any other offers?
I would say the same. The tree will be the history, and the cycle for me will be the geography.
Yeah, so Ranjan Ben's just joined us. So
it's the other way around. It's the other way around. Tree was this geography.
I put the table in the wrong.
History is in the cycle.
I can't see. I put the table in the wrong place. Do you mind swapping it? You'll have to come closer. Yes. So Sister Sidesh used to say that Brahma Baba used to say it's the other way around. And that's what I was just mentioning about religion and geography. So you got the tree of religions. Now, I would have just heard that, like I heard that. But then 10 years later, as I'm thinking, as these moralities come around again, my knowledge of the world is growing, my brain is developing, and it became much more clear to me that, yeah, when you look at a map of the world, you're looking at history of religions, aren't you? I mean, you can't really get away from it. Wars as well, a lot of wars are connected with religion. You can't get away from that. So our world is shaped. Even if colonialism, it was imbued with racism and also religious superiority. Again, you can't get away from our world being shaped by religion. So the way Baba puts it in the morally is that as the religions expand, the lands expand, and then you get different colors of people. That's to do with geography, because obviously bodies of different climates and different habitats, they're going to be different. And he says that when you've just got one religion, so he uses this concept of singularity to describe the Golden Age and the Silver Age. He says you've got one land, one religion, one language, and that everyone would then be of that same body type. And he says that's the only time when you don't have conflict. And then it's very sad, really, because the beauty of the Copper and Iron Age is diversity. And it's also the tragedy. We can't seem to handle the diversity. So we immediately become tribal. And so geography is really linked with the expansion of religions. As time goes on, souls of different faiths. So I then would think about it in terms of diet, that, when did we begin killing animals and, eating animals? And it must have been such a trauma to nature, right? For thousands of years, no one would even think about doing that. And I presume the animals would have been very innocent and trusting, like they wouldn't have had the survival instincts built within them. And at some point, they have to, something changes. I presume that if you're then born and you're living in more extreme climates, ice climates or desert climates, maybe that's what turns you, you're in a fishing area or something like that, maybe nothing grows, and that begins to turn you towards those types of diets. And then it spreads even to places where you don't need to eat those types of diets. Maybe that's how it works. So I think the spread of people, so the tree is describing a spread. And we move from, Baba tells us, doesn't he, that you start off mainly around the river Yamuna in India, and you have your sort of your global village all coming off that river and maybe its tributaries. And then you begin to expand over time as your population grows. So you get more diversity, and languages, they also develop by location, don't they? Because you'd have different dialects, and maybe dialects lead to different words and so on. So this tree is depicting diversity. And even in our picture, it's quite simple. The actual tree is much more diverse, much more complex. So by the end of the Iron Age, I mean, think how many faiths, because you would subdivide every great faith how many times? Thousands of times. And then the polytheistic religions are not really depicted so clearly in our picture. But we know Egypt, Rome, Greece, I mean, they had so many, but all these faiths, they were around for a while as well. So think of the diversity of beliefs, the amount of Bhakti, the cultures, the languages. We've actually ended up with more singularity of language because of colonialism, but otherwise there would have been many, many more languages, you think, right across Africa, right across the world. So I was saying at the end of the Iron Age, think how thick the branches, the twigs of this tree are. How do you find? You look into that very thickly developed tree. How do you find the seed? So it's only at that point that the seed falls again to the ground. And so the Supreme Soul comes into this field of action, this karma kshetra, and the seed is planted once again into the body of Brahma. So there has to be some sort of connection with the soul, who is the seed of the 84 births. So the soul of Sri Krishna is the seed, the first baby. We've had some Muralis on that recently. And you've got the seed of the whole tree, Shiva. And so when the two seeds meet, you begin to have a new sapling beginning to emerge. So the way that Janki used to explain it is you've got Shiva, the seed, and the first leaf is the soul of Sri Krishna. And then the second leaf, Sri Radhe. So you've got then the rest of the sapling emerging from that, because Brahma and Saraswati are underground. They're the roots. The Brahmins are the roots. But what we see up above, so Baba said last week that no one notices when Shiva incarnates. His birth is incognito. at the end, when the full rage of destruction is going, people will realize that God must have come. They will have, it'll be through touchings, through vision, it'll be more subtle realization. But when Krishna is born, everyone would run. That's not incognito. So the seed and the roots, they're underground. But the first leaf, that will become visible. Then you know something is growing, something has changed. And so the new sapling will begin as the old tree falls. And so geography begins again. We concentrate back onto one place and then we expand. That's the cycle. And then history, it goes back to this word sequence. So again, when these moralities come up, I'll go over all these topics, but this word sequencing, I feel, is the word eternity and the word sequencing. These are the two words that we have to grasp to understand the cycle, to understand this lila, this play, that nothing can happen out of order. Nothing. So Baba often handles this in response to the children's question. The Baba, why did you leave it so late? We were suffering for thousands of years. You could have come a bit earlier. It would have helped us out a bit. And Baba says, it's a sequence. Until all of these branches, all of these, I come at the end, the seed. So we had a section, do you remember, maybe 3 Saturdays ago, where we had a section of 3 parts of Mama's classes. And she took up this in one of her parts, that the seed is visible at the beginning and at the end. You cannot see the seed in the middle of the tree while the expansion is going. So Shiv Baba says, it's a sequence. This is the way. That's what the tree is teaching you. It's a sequence. And then when you look at the cycle, it began through the image of the swastika, which in India, of course, has a positive connotation, in Europe not. But the original spirit of the swastika is very positive. It means good luck. And if you look at it, it's 4 sections. And so we heard a morally I reckon 2 months ago, where Brahma Baba was recounting being at his friend's house in Benares. And suddenly someone was picking up his hand and drawing circles with a swastika in the middle on the wall. And Brahma Baba described himself as a baby at that time, a baby in knowledge. And he was just looking like babies just drawing, just looking at this picture for hours, not really understanding what's going on here. And then gradually he's beginning to understand that the swastika is not just a symbol of love, it's describing the sequence of time. And so the circle is eternity, and the squares are sequence. So these are the 2 words we have to understand when we're understanding this play. The circle means eternity. There is no end, there is no beginning. But within the eternity, there is a sequence. And nothing, no one can disturb that sequence. It's not that we can skip an age and end up somewhere. It's not that a soul can come before or after. Every one of us has to come into our sequence. So Baba uses this word number-wise. But as I say, I don't think we should approach it with the mentality of comparison, but rather with the understanding of a sequence. So let's take that example of the Abrahamic religions. Judaism has to come first, right? I mean, the Old Testament has to come first. How do you have the other scriptures before that one? Before those scriptures of the Old Testament? So you have to have all those Old Testament prophets. Then Christ is seen as, like, people, Jewish people would just consider him to be another one in that lineage, as with the Muslims. And then the Muslims would consider Muhammad to be the final one, the ultimate prophet in that lineage. So you can't have one. They see Jesus as one of them, previous, the ancestors. So it's a sequence. Hinduism, unless the deities have been there, who are you worshiping? So the idols are depicting something that's gone before. There's a sequence. So it's understanding. You look at the development of science, and it's a history of sequences. You can't skip a step. You know, someone somewhere, like, for example, a lot of our understanding of physics is based upon spectacles. So it was, once these lenses were developed, I think it was in the 14th century, and the Dutch got ahead because they developed spectacles. So then they were able to develop a telescope, which enabled them to then sail further, because they were able to use the stars as a map to go further than just the Mediterranean. And so the whole of colonialism is based on spectacle. Without that invention, you can't then have others. And then you look at physics now, it's all, you know, telescopes and being able to understand our universe, being able to understand that the sun is a solar system. It's all based on, so what you have is, history means sequence. So understanding the history and the geography of the world. And so Baba says, only you children understand this out of all of the souls of the world, and only you understand this now. So Baba says it wouldn't have made sense if he came earlier, because you can't look back and say, this was the history. If he comes in the Copper Age, like the Gita describes, it's like so many religions weren't established by that. So what is he explaining? Half a history, it would be half a picture. But coming at the end, Baba says, I can explain to you the whole, the full. So yeah, I think all of this is totally intriguing, totally fascinating. This is why every day I find it very, very new. I understand a little bit more each day, and I convey to all brothers and sisters, reinforce really Baba's message that don't miss a day's morally, because I saw even with Daddy Genki, 75 years later of hearing these morally, she always found something new. And she brought it out in her classes, and I used to listen every day to her classes, and more than one. And so she was brilliant at bringing out something new from a point that I had heard 10 times before, 15 times before. But somehow, that's one of the things I miss. I miss her reading morally, because, you know, it was hearing that point, but somehow she had pulled out something else. Give you an example, a memory that stays with me is, there's a point in the morally. So it's linked with this point of Krishna being the seed as well, the soul of Krishna being the seed. And I had heard so many times Baba say that Krishna takes the full 84 births. You children also take 84 births. So I've heard that point many, many times. And then I recall very vividly her reading the morally. And she's reading that point, and she just looks up and goes, Krishna takes the full 84 births. You children also take 84 births. So not the full, but you take 84. And that just, so it was the same line I had heard, but she's pulling out, there's one soul who has the full cycle. The rest of us, even if it's a few seconds, a few minutes, maybe with Mama, it's just a few seconds extra in the soul world, just a few seconds extra. But it's still not the full 84 bits. Whereas the soul of Brahma will just touch the soul world and straight, because he's the seed. It's like, I think, a rule that he must always be down here, because it's always about the cycle. It's not about sitting in the soul. So that's what I really like to emphasize that to brothers and sisters, that think deeply about each line, and then think, this history and geography. Okay, we've understood the cycle. We've understood the tree. You've probably explained it 100 times to other people, but you hear it again and you think, oh, okay, there is something more here that I hadn't quite grasped. I think today in the Morley, Baba just going back and emphasizing that the word Parampita, Supreme Father, should be there, made me realize how precise he was, with the language, that these diagrams, these pictures of even Shiv Baba, it's not just a random label. He has deliberately put those words in a particular order and chosen specific words. Because if you just use the word in Hindi, Paramatma, or you just use the word incorporeal, he knows it's going to imply something that he doesn't want it to imply. So then he's thought about it and inserted the word Supreme Father, Supreme Soul. So that changes it from Bhakti and makes it different. The word in the questionnaire that he created, what is your relationship with the Supreme Father, the Supreme Soul? Immediately challenges omnipresence, immediately. So it's very, very precise, very, very specific. And so I think, again, I appreciated that more. Otherwise, I've heard these many times. I think the word Leela as well took another meaning for me this morning. I really got a better idea about it. So there's so much to this. We've got to just keep studying. You want to say anything? Come in with anything?
Also, Baba, Tata, they said that don't just say Brahma Baba, but say Prajapita, Brahma, because some, as in India, people name themselves after deity's name and all. So some people have this name, Brahma. And Sudesh was been reading that Murli, and she said there was one mother from Haryana, Punjab, and she was very tall like Baba, and she used to come, and her name was Brahma. I was surprised. Sister's name was Brahma. And so that's why Brahma Baba, she was sitting, and she used to love coming to Madhuban and very happy. And so that's why, and then she was very happy that her name is Brahma, and as tall as Brahma Baba. And she used to dance in front of Baba. And that's why Baba emphasized that we should always explain Prajapita Brahma, the father who is on this earth, father of the humanity, because we are playing part here. And so when we explain about Brahma Baba, first prince, and this is why Baba says, and when we explain of the Father, Supreme Father, like in Christianity, oh God Father, everybody would believe. But if we say just Paramatma, God, or if we say Sri Krishna is a God, everybody is not going to believe it. But when we say light, everybody in some way or other. There's a memorial of like Christmas tree in every religion. They give importance to the tree. So this is why Baba says, read it, study it, and understand it, and then you can explain that it makes sense to them.
Yeah, and I think Ranjan Ben is sharing, and Sister Sudesh always is great at conveying the feelings of the class. So when we read the transcript of the Murli, we can miss sometimes the sense of humor. So, the fact that Brahma Baba has got a mother called Brahma, who is the same height as him, sitting in front, you can imagine the class laughing, just chuckling away. And you'll see many Indians with names like Lakshmi Narayan, like Brother Lakshmi Narayan. I remember one brother from South India, his name was Shivalingam brother, came to London Centre. And, he used to chuckle because he was like quite a big, round brother with a bald head and a quite dark skin. And he really looked like a Shivalingam. And it was just, you can't help but just chuckle when you hear these things. I remember there's one Madhaban Nivasi, and his name is Ganesh, and he has this big round belly. And I remember when he was being introduced, he just chuckles away. Yes, my name is Ganesh. And he really looked like a Ganesh. And sometimes in the Morally as well, he's making these points which are theoretical and profound, but there's also an amusement, a twinkle in the eye as he's making these points. And it is very contextual as to who's in front of him as well.
May I just say that this morning, the concept of the virgin birth was made very clear by that reference to Parampita, Paramatma, the mouth-born creation. And that's quite a big sort of settlement, I would have thought, for many of us brought up on Christianity, that concept.
Yes, and you might like to just dip into chit chat we did about 3 weeks ago. We were rereading a passage from the 18th January 1980, morally, on the virgin birth. I think it's on the YouTube channel under Palaces of the Womb or something like that. So you might want to just dip in to that one. It will give further clarification. Yeah. This concept of Jivan Mukti is also becoming clearer to me this year, I think, as well. What does it mean? Just this life without restriction. Because you meet so many souls, don't you? And we recently here, we had the Commonwealth Games, and they did it in a unique way where they combined the disabled athletes with the able-bodied athlete. They didn't have a separate games. They had a combined Paralympic, para sports with the other sports schedule. And these are souls, they've managed their body, there's some restriction in the body. And they've been successful, of course, and achieving a lot. But if they didn't have the disability, maybe they would have achieved even more with the full body. And of course, in terms of remuneration, you're not going to get as much in disabled sports as you would in able-bodied sports. So you see that souls, they're struggling with one or another restriction. So when you begin to think of it that way, that what is sorrow? Because if we just generally say to people that, oh, the whole world is sorrowful and you're sorry, you've got so much sorrow, they'll say to you, no, I'm not sorrowful. They will feel insulted by us saying that. And some people even think that Brahma Kumaris teach all these positive thinking courses, and then they tell everyone the world is going to be destroyed. They're the most negative organized, they've got no positive thinking. So when we look at it that way, that any restriction is really a sorrow. Gandhi used to call poverty as the greatest violence. You know, it's a big restriction. Being restricted from education, from opportunities, then you could have some sort of other type of, people have initially a very happy marriage, and then the person that they're married to develops mental health issues, other issues. They have children who've got other sorts of issues. So what you have is, it's not that isn't that love, there isn't that care, but you have to rethink things. There's a restriction. And I think that's the struggle of the Iron Age, that we all have dreams, but we end up living a life that's actually shaped by restriction and vulnerabilities. And then Baba saying, how about not having any of those restrictions for thousands of years? How would you like that? But to do that, you're going to have to really change at your core. You're going to have to get the impurities right out of the soul. That's the only way to achieve a life without restriction. So he focuses on that. And I have to say that makes the Golden Age more appealing for me. You know, just walking around in gold palaces and gold crowns. It's just like, it's a meaning, like I can't relate to that in the same way. But thinking, how about science with no resource restrictions? What could we achieve? Thinking about inventions or any type of activity where there's no possibility of an accident, no possibility of bad weather, earthquakes, anything like that. Often in our world, a country is trying to come up and then suddenly they have a flood, they have an earthquake. So they're always, even if governments are trying, it becomes difficult to develop. Suddenly a pandemic comes up, suddenly a war starts. So the Iron Age is designed to block us, to put those obstacles in our way. And Jivan Mukti, freedom from vulnerability, freedom from accidents, freedom from restrictions, and unlimited resources. So again, I would say this year, I've heard the word Jivan Mukti for decades, but I would say this year, I'm understanding it on another level. So keep hearing the more of these, folks. That's the main message. Keep going with the more of these, and it'll all deepen. So shall we hear one of the Vogue messages, and then we'll come back and have more of a chit chat based on that topic. So I'll hand over to Ranjan now.
Om Shanti, good morning. Well, we have already heard messages from, we started, it was first one was on the 27th of August, and that was Gulzar Dadi taking book first after Dadiji's funeral service. And then Mohini Ben from Madhuban, we heard. And then last week we had Mohini Ben from New York, and also Medanti Ben. Well, she's originally from Ahmedabad, but currently serving in Nairobi for many years in East Africa and whole of Africa. She's in charge. So we heard a message from her. So I hope you remember there was lots of teachings and lots of lovely Dadiji's wishes for us to progress. And so last week, both the messages, whenever Mohini Ben went and Dadiji was busy with Baba making plans. Do you remember? And Baba said, yes, Daddy is busy making plans because Daddy always loved serving every breath, even whilst having rest, Daddy was serving the world. And so now Baba had taken Daddy on a tour of Madhuban and all the complexes, and she met all the, subtly met everyone. And but then when Vedanti went, she was making another double plans because she was serving, she has said when she was in the physical form, she hadn't been to all the parts of Africa and other places, and the service wasn't done. So that's why she was making all these double plans with Baba. And so I hope you revise if you have time and remember what she said, what plan. But now today, so that was 26, 27, 28, 29. We read all those 4 messages. Today is the 5th day, and then it's the 30th of August, 2007, and it's Thursday. बाप दादा और दादी जी के निमित्त विशेष भोग तथा वतन का दिव्य संदेश मोहिनी बहन मधुबन.
Sister Mohini of Madhuban has brought this message on the day of the Satguru for both the day for Bhog and also for Daddy.
आप सबका याद प्यार नैनों में समाकर जब बाबा के पास पहुंची तो क्या देखा कि बाबा एक लाइट की पहाड़ी पर ग्लोब के ऊपर दादी को साथ लिए खड़े हुए थे.
Having merged all of your love and remembrances in my eyes and reaching the subtle region, I saw that Baba was standing with Daddy on a mountain on top of light.
और ग्लोब अंदर से चमक रहा था और घूम रहा था.
And the globe that they were standing atop, there was a globe underneath that they were standing on top of, and that was revolving and also sparkling.
तो मैं देखती रही कि कैसे बाबा विश्व की सर्व आत्माओं को अपना और दादी का अनुभव करा रहा था.
I was observing how Baba was giving souls of the world the experience of himself and Daddy.
तो मैं तो नीचे थी और बाबा और दादी ऊपर ग्लोब की चोटी पर खड़े थे. तो जब ग्लोब मेरी तरफ आया तो मैंने देखा कि बाबा ने, दादी ने मेरी तरफ देखा और मैंने देखा कि उन दोनों के नैनों से इतनी लाइट निकल रही थी जो मुझे ऐसे लगा जैसे मैं लाइट और प्यार के समुद्र में डूब गई हूँ.
I was underneath and Baba and Daddy were atop the globe. And when that globe spun round in my direction, I began to see how there were such rays of light coming from the globe. And then Baba and Daddy were looking at me, and there were powerful rays of light and love coming from both of their eyes into me.
And मोहिनी बेन को लगा कि वे प्यार में के लाइट और प्यार के समुद्र में डूब गई हूँ.
And I had the experience as if I was diving deep into the ocean of love.
बाबा ने मुझे इशारे से अपने पास बुलाया और कहा कि देखो बच्ची, मैं तुम्हारी दादी को सारे विश्व की परिक्रमा करा रहा हूँ.
Through a signal, Baba signaled to me to come closer to him, and he said that, look, daughter, I am giving Daddy the experience of touring around the whole world,
क्योंकि यह विश्व की दादी है।
because this is the Daddy of the world.
तो दादी को सारे विश्व का पता होना चाहिए। वैसे विश्व का चक्कर लगाओ तो कितना टाइम लग जाता है, लेकिन वतन में बाबा के साथ चक्कर लगाने में सेकंड में सारे विश्व का चक्कर लग जाता है।
So she should know about what's going on in the whole world. Generally, it would take a long time to travel around the whole world. But in Baba's subtle region, you can tour around the entire globe in a second.
और विश्व की आत्माओं को भी अनुभव होता है, लेकिन यथाशक्ति वह इस बात को समझ पाते हैं कि यह फरिश्ते कौन है।
And the souls of the world do experience this tour, but according to their capacity, they would have an understanding as to who these angels are.
लेकिन देखा हुआ होगा तो समय पर यही चित्र उनके सामने आएगा और कहेंगे कि हमने इनको देखा है।
But having glimpsed the angel, at some point they will remember that memory that they had seen this angel before.
यह स्मृति ही उनको समय की और बाप के पहचान की याद दिलाएंगी।
At the right time, it will be this memory that will make them aware of time and the introduction of the Father.
फिर बाबा हम सबको लेकर नीचे आए और आकर बैठे।
And then Baba came down from that mountain top and sat with all of us.
तो बाबा बड़े प्यार से दृष्टि दे रहे थे और दादी भी बड़े प्यार से दृष्टि दे रहे थे, लेकिन कोई बोल नहीं रहे थे।
And then in silence, both Bap Dada and Daddy gave everyone lots of loving drishti.
कोई बोल नहीं रहे थे, साइलेंस। थोड़ी देर बाद बाबा ने कहा, बच्ची क्या सोच रही हो, क्या संदेश लेकर आई हो? तो मैंने कहा, बाबा सब दादी को याद करते हैं, आपको याद करते हैं कि बाबा ने आपको कैसे बुला लिया।
After a while, Baba then asked me what news and what other messages have you brought? And so I said to Baba that everyone is just still thinking about how did you bring Daddy up here to you in the subtle region?
और दादी को याद करते हैं कि अभी तो सेवा बाकी थी, फिर भी दादी को बाबा ने क्यों बुला लिया?
And we remember Daddy thinking that there's so much service still left to be done. So why would Baba have called Daddy up to the subtle region?
फिर बाबा मुस्कुराए और कहा कि मम्मा ने यज्ञ स्थापना में अपना सब प्रकार का सहयोग दिया, जो यज्ञ कहां से कहां तक पहुंच गया।
Then Baba smiled and said, look how Mama gave her cooperation in many different ways to ensure that the yajna was established, and she managed to get it from there, from a place of starting to where it was at that time when she left.
लेकिन इस बच्ची ने विश्व सेवा में संपूर्ण सहयोग दिया, जो सारे विश्व में इस बच्ची ने बाप का संदेश, विश्व शांति का संदेश फैलाया।
But this daughter then took that globally, and she managed to spread Baba's message right around the globe.
तो बाबा तो यह बच्ची सेवा के निमित्त बनी, जो बाबा ने कहा, जैसा बाबा ने कहा जब कहा बच्ची ने हाँ जी का पाठ पक्का किया, जी बाबा.
And this daughter became an instrument because whenever Baba said something, whatever Baba said, this daughter just said yes.
और शुरू से लेकर लक्ष्य रखा कि मुझे बाप समान बनना है, और यह बच्ची का अंदर ही अंदर सदा पुरुषार्थ चलता रहा.
And from the beginning, she kept the aim that I have to become equal to Baba, and internally, the efforts for that continued right throughout her journey.
बच्ची ने अपनी सत्यता, पवित्रता, प्यार, शक्ति और रहम की दृष्टि से सारे ब्राह्मण परिवार को एक सूत्र में बांध कर रखा.
She tied the entire Brahmin family in a thread of love and unity through her truth, her purity, her love, and her vision of compassion. Sorry?
जो दादी जैसे कहे, जो कहे, कभी किसी बच्चे ने ना नहीं किया.
Whatever Daddy asked others to do, everyone then also wanted to say yes to her.
अगर कभी किसी ने ना कहा भी हो, तो बाद में पश्चाताप करता था कि मैंने ना क्यों किया, फिर दादी के आगे आकर माफी मांगता था.
And then, even if someone did say no initially, they would regret it and come back and ask for forgiveness from Daddy later on.
तो इतना बड़ा कार्य बाबा ने इस बच्ची से कराया और बच्ची ने किया.
And so Baba completed such a large task through this daughter, and she fulfilled it.
निश्चय के आधार पर बच्ची ने हर कर्म में, हर सेवा में, हर श्वास में, हर संकल्प में विजय प्राप्त की, और बाप से अति प्यार होने के कारण बच्ची ने त्याग भी बहुत किया, कुर्बानी भी बहुत की.
Based on her foundation of faith, she became successful in every thought, every breath, every service, every task. And because of her unlimited love for the Father, she was also willing to sacrifice at every step.
न अपने शरीर का, न पदार्थ का, न वैभव का कहाँ भी बच्ची की दृष्टि नहीं जाती थी.
Her vision never went into her own body, possessions, positions, or any type of comfort.
जैसे बाबा के गुणों की माला बनाते हैं, ऐसे बच्ची के गुणों को भी याद करते हैं.
Just as Brahmins would create a rosary of Baba's virtues, similarly, the Brahmins create such a rosary of Daddy's virtues.
मैंने कहा, बाबा आज मैं भी एक माला लाई हूँ, जो दादी के गुणों की माला विदेशी बच्चों ने बनाई है.
So I said to Baba that I've also brought a rosary or garland with me today. The double foreigner children have made a rosary of the different virtues of Daddy.
तो बाबा ने कहा, माला का दाना बनने वाले बच्चों की ही माला बनती है.
And then Baba said that the rosary is made of the souls who are to be the beads of the rosary.
यह बच्ची तो माला का मुख्य मन का बाप समान है, तो बच्ची के गुणों की माला क्यों नहीं बनाएंगी?
This daughter is a main jewel equal to Baba within the rosary. And so, of course, it's appropriate to make a rosary of her virtues.
हमने कहा, दादी को सब याद करते हैं और दादी की कॉटेज तो अभी सुनी लगती है.
And then I said that everyone's remembering Daddy, and Daddy's cottage just seems empty now.
तो बाबा ने कहा कि बच्ची ने पहले से ही बाबा को कॉटेज में बिठाया है, तो उस कॉटेज में बाबा भी है, दादी भी है.
And then Baba said that Daddy had already invoked Baba into that cottage, and so you should feel that both Baba and Daddy are still in Daddy's cottage.
तो हर एक वहाँ अनुभव करेगा कि दादी गई नहीं है, यहाँ ही बैठी है और वहाँ रहकर ही सारा कार्य चला रही है.
So everyone should have the awareness that Daddy's not gone anywhere. She's still living in Daddy's cottage and organizing, supervising all the work that's being done.
हमने कहा, this Mohini Ben from Madhuban said to Baba, हमने कहा दादी जानकी को मुख्य बनाया गया है, तो बाबा ने कहा देखो त्रिमूर्ति का गायन है, त्रिमूर्ति को पहले से ही आप दिखाते थे, दादी जानकी, दादी गुलजार और दादी तीनों ही सदा साथ रहे हैं.
And I shared with Baba that it was decided that Daddy Janki would become the administrative head. And Baba said that for some time there's been the praise of the Trimurti Daddies, Daddy Prakashmani, Daddy Janki, and Daddy Gulzar. They've always been close to each other and they'll always remain closely connected.
तो दोनों दादियाँ बाबा के सामने इमर्ज हुई और दोनों कभी बाबा को और कभी दादी को देख रही थी.
And so both Daddy Janki and Daddy Gulzar emerged in front of Baba. And sometimes they were looking at Baba, sometimes they were looking at Daddy.
दादी तो बाबा के दिल में समाई हुई थी.
And Daddy Prakashmani was just merged in Baba's heart.
इन दोनों दादियों को भी बाबा ने अपनी बाहों में ले लिया, इन तीनों को बाबा ने.
And then Baba took Daddy Gulzar and Daddy Janki into his arms as well. So all three of them were embraced by Baba.
बाबा ने कहा जानकी बच्ची को तो अभी डबल सेवा करनी पड़ेगी.
And then Baba said, well, the daughter Janki is going to have to do double service now.
अभी तो डबल ताज हो गया.
She's now got a double crown.
तो दादी ने कहा जो बाबा कराएगा, जैसे कराएगा, जो बाबा की आज्ञा, मैं उस पर तत्पर रहूं.
What that means is that Daddy Janki has to supervise the foreign service as well as the service in India. That's what he means by the double crown. So Daddy Janki responded to Baba that whatever Baba makes me do, however he makes me do it, I will just do that.
गुलजार दादी के लिए कहा यह बच्ची तो डबल पाठधारी है ही, सबकी भावना भी बच्ची में है, बाबा का बाप दादा का रथ भी है, ज्ञानी तू आत्मा बच्ची है.
And then Baba said to Daddy Gulzar that she already plays a double role and everyone's bhavna is in that daddy because she is Bapdada's chariot and she is also a soul who is very knowledgeable.
अभी दादी तो गुप्त है, लेकिन गुप्त होते देह के बंधन से न्यारी है, जैसे बाबा भी न्यारा है, तो कहाँ भी जाकर सेवा करके आ सकते हैं.
And now Daddy Prakashmani has become incognito like Baba, and they are free from the bondage of the body, which means that they can go anywhere in the world and serve.
ऐसे बच्ची की रोम रोम में भी सेवा का संस्कार भरा हुआ है, सेवा के बिना रह नहीं सकती है.
The sanskars of service are filled within every cell of her body, and therefore she cannot remain without serving.
तो समय को समीप लाने के लिए बाबा ने बच्ची को अपना साथी बनाया हुआ है.
So to bring time close, Baba has made this daughter his companion.
तो चारों तरफ चक्कर लगाकर बच्ची कार्य को संपन्न करेंगी.
So this daughter is going to tour around in all four directions and complete Baba's task.
एक तरफ प्रकृति की हलचल,
On one side, there will be the upheaval of nature.
दूसरे तरफ माया के भिन्न स्थूल सूक्ष्म रूप,
On the other side, there will be the many practical and subtle forms of Maya.
राजनीति की हलचल,
There will be the upheaval of politics and government.
साइंटिस्ट की हलचल,
there will be upheaval of science.
यह सब हलचल अभी शुरू होंगी क्योंकि अभी डबल पावर काम करेंगी, इसलिए बाबा बच्चों को भी इशारा देता है कि बच्चे भी संपूर्ण शक्ति से, एकाग्र बुद्धि से समय को समीप लाने वाले बने.
These upheavals will now increase because there's now a double power in the subtle region inspiring them to. And so the Brahmin children, can you just read that again?
इसलिए बाबा बच्चों को भी इशारा देता है कि बच्चे भी संपूर्ण शक्ति से, एकाग्र बुद्धि से समय को समीप लाने वाले बने.
So Baba is giving the Brahmin children the signal to adopt the form of complete power and a concentrated intellect so that you are also bringing time closer.
जो बाबा चाहता है कि संपन्न बने, संपूर्णता की ओर चले, तो जो कार्य मुश्किल लगता था अभी वह कार्य सहज होता जाएगा.
What Baba wants is for the children to become full and complete with everything, and then whatever tasks seem to be difficult, they will become easy.
लेकिन बच्चों को थोड़ा अलर्ट रहना होगा, फिर स्थापना का कार्य देखना कितनी जोर पकड़ता है.
But the children need to become more alert, and then they will observe how the task of establishment will gain great force.
तो अभी दुनिया में भी हलचल बढ़ती जाएंगी और आप लोगों को भी अचल अडोल स्थिति में एक नामी होकर चलना होगा.
And so the upheavals in the world are going to increase, and you Brahmins are going to need to become more stable and in an unshakable stage, and be concentrated on one.
दादी सुन भी रही थी और मुस्कुरा रही थी.
Daddy was listening to this and smiling.
मैंने दादी को कहा, मोहिनी बेन ने दादी को कहा कि आप ऐसे कैसे आ गई.
I said to Daddy, how did you just come like that so suddenly?
तो दादी ने कहा, सभी ऐसे आए हैं तो मैं भी ऐसे आ गई.
And Daddy said, all the other daddies also just came suddenly, so I also came suddenly.
फिर दादी ने कहा कि आप दोनों को दादी ने बहुत पालना दी है, जो दादी से सीखा है, पाया है, उसको आपसे यही भाषा आनी चाहिए कि दादी वही प्यार पालना शक्ति दे रही है.
So I think she's also referring to Sister Muni. So Baba said that Daddy gave both of you a lot of sustenance, and so now others should feel from you Daddy's sustenance and Daddy's love and power that you attain.
तो आप दादी कॉटेज को ऐसा ही बनाकर रखना जो आने वाले ऐसा अनुभव करें.
And so keep Daddy's cottage in such a way that anyone who enters has that experience.
दादी तो एकदम निर्मोही थी और हमको भी ऐसा बना रही थी.
Daddy was completely free from attachment, and she was making me feel like that too.
दादी हमको दृष्टि से ऐसी शक्ति दे रही थी और कह रही थी कि ड्रामा की भावी समझ सदा निश्चिंत रहना.
And Daddy just said to me that just remember the destiny of the drama and remain carefree about everything.
जो हो रहा है उसमें कल्याण समाया हुआ है.
There's benefit in everything that happens.
हर बात में कल्याण देखते हुए यही समझना, इसमें ही मेरा भी कल्याण समाया हुआ है.
Seeing benefit in everything, understand within yourself that there is benefit for me also merged within this scene.
फिर बाबा ने दादी को भोग स्वीकार कराया.
And then Baba fed Daddy the bowl.
मैंने कहा, दादी आपको बूंदी बहुत बूंदी पूरी बहुत अच्छी लगती थी, तो आज वही भोग लाई हूँ.
I told Daddy that I brought the bhog of one of your favorite dishes, the bundi, which is the small orange sweet balls, together with some puri.
तो आज वही भोग लाई हूँ. फिर मैंने अपने हाथों से दादी को भोग स्वीकार कराया.
And then I fed Daddy myself with my hands.
तो सभी बच्चों को कहना कि जितना बाबा से प्यार, सबका प्यार है, उतना दादी से भी है, इसलिए सभी पहुंच गए.
And then Baba said that as much as the brothers and sisters have love for Baba, they have that much love for Daddy too. And this is why everyone has reached him.
जैसे यह सबूत दिया, ऐसे प्यार का सबूत देते, सेवा में सहयोग देते, पावरफुल वातावरण बनाने में सहयोग देते रहेंगे, तो जल्दी ही दुनिया का परिवर्तन शुरू हो जाएगा.
So just as you've demonstrated your love in this, if you continue to demonstrate your love by cooperating in service and creating a powerful atmosphere, then the world will be transformed quickly.
तो आने वाले देश विदेश के बच्चों को खास याद प्यार देना.
And so give special love and remembrances to all of the brothers and sisters from this land and abroad that have arrived.
फिर दादी ने कहा, खास मेरी याद प्यार उन्हें देना जिन्होंने दादी की बहुत समय सेवा की है. नर्सिस आदि ने उनको बहुत बहुत याद देना और कहना कि सबने मेरी बहुत प्यार से सेवा की, सबको दिल की दुआएं.
And then Daddy said, give special remembrance to all of those that served me for a while, the nurses and others that cared for me. They all did it with a lot of love. And so there are blessings from my heart going towards all of them.
डॉक्टर गुप्ता जी ने भी बहुत प्यार से सेवा की. डॉक्टर साहू ने भी बहुत प्यार से सेवा की.
Dr. Gupta, Dr. Sahu, they both served with a lot of love.
तो गुप्ता जी को भी खास पदम गुणा याद और दिल की दुआएं देना और कहना कि सदा समय और स्वयं को देखते हुए सेवा में सफलता को प्राप्त करते रहना.
And so give a lot of heartfelt love to Dr. Gupta ji and remind him that continue to look at himself, look at time, and continue to serve in such a way that he will continue to receive success.
दादी ने और बाबा ने मुन्नी बहन को भी बहुत बहुत याद दी. बच्ची ने बहुत सेवा की है.
Baba and Daddy both remembered Sister Muni because she has also done a lot of service.
तो बाप और दादी दिल की दुआएं दे रहे हैं.
And so Baba and Daddy are both giving heartfelt blessings to Muniben.
दुआओं से सदा आगे बढ़ती रहेंगी और दादी के प्यार की पालना का अनुभव कराती रहेंगी.
And so this love and these blessings will continue to make her move forward, and she will continue to give others the experience of the love and sustenance that she received from Daddy.
ऐसे याद प्यार लेते भोग स्वीकार कराते मैं साकार वतन में आ गई.
So taking that love and remembrance and accepting the bhog, I returned back to this world. So Benjamin, you'd like to say anything?
Yeah, and just on Dadi Day, Muni Ben was saying the same thing, that it's not me, it's Dadi. Whatever we learned and, whatever sustenance Dadi ji give, it's Dadi, and everybody was experiencing. So it was practical. We saw all this, everybody remembering Dadi ji, and there was lots. So it's Dadi ji is very special, giving lights and, even politicians, everybody was remembering her as their own Dadi.
So would any sisters who are here like to come in and share anything, any reflections on what you've heard?
What reinforced me is that when Baba says he brought the daughter up to him, it was to intensify, you know, the upheavals that's going to be happening. And really, there was a discussion some time ago with some of the brothers at the center and the sisters, and you know, they were saying that an indication of time coming close is when the daddies start leaving. And you know, Baba saying this in this book message is just brings it back. And you know, again, I am reflecting on the fortune that we have, because we know Baba is telling us, we know what is happening. The upheaval will be there all around in various areas, politics, the climate, everything. And it's really again emphasizing, you know, some time ago, I think you would have done this journey with this level of concentration. And that is where, you know, it is important for us to be able to really develop this one Baba, you know, take that full support all the time, being concentrated, understanding what my role is, and not getting sidetracked with anything that is happening. Understanding what is happening is nothing new, and remaining stable. You know, that's what Daddy is saying also, for us to be stable, and this giving of love. You know, that is what Daddy is, was, and still is. And really, this love is really what brings transformation in a lot of areas and a lot of people. So it's really being able to be love, being concentrated, being stable. That's really what I'm emphasizing a bit more in myself.
Thanks for that summary. Danette Ben, did you want to come in?
Shanti, no, just looking at the point that was brought up, that we shouldn't worry about things happening, because everything that is happening is good. There is purpose in everything. And I keep remembering Daddy Janki's word, and I live that life. What happened in the past is good. What's happening now is good. And what will happen in the future will also be good. And when we adopt that feeling and that attitude about life, we don't worry. We understand that drama has to play its part, and it's good. Whatever is happening is good. And it gives you that freedom that we have no control over what is happening. It's going to happen, and something good is going to come out of it. That's what I took mostly, the biggest part I took from it. Thank you. Om Shanti.
Yeah, thanks for re-emphasizing that. That's right, isn't it? And it's like knowledge and positivity combining, isn't it, in that line? Because we know there's benefit in everything on the basis of knowledge. We then have to use our power of positivity, but the appearance might not be good. So the scene might not actually look like it's good. But what you're doing is you're having that faith. So it's like knowledge, positivity, and faith coming together with that. Some scenes in the drama, we can identify the benefits quite quickly. But there are other scenes in the drama where you don't see the benefit for a while. And actually it takes more faith. Some scenes in the drama, maybe we'll never know them. But it's having that faith that it is beneficial. Yeah, thank you for that. Would anyone else like to come in? No. So I think I'm finding it very useful each week to be going back over these messages and hearing them again, and can really feel Daddy's presence actually, and it feels like a deeper connection with the subtle region as I'm hearing this. And I think what's becoming clearer for me is that how the subtle body accelerates everything. We're hearing this narrative this week a lot about the karmatit state. And one sister had asked me to explain a little bit more on what that karmatit stage is. That's why it took a little longer this morning in the recording to just identify that and summarize that. And what we're seeing from Baba is that the level of service just changes. And we can be so used to seeing service as something you say, something you do. And to begin to conceptualize service as being something that is your being, that your consciousness, your subtle power of thought. Yesterday, Baba said about becoming the zero, forgetting the body, remembering the one. And we were just hearing about this concept of stabilizing your intellect, concentrating your intellect on the one. So yesterday I was thinking about how I am more useful to the world being a zero than being an expansion. And our ego doesn't want to accept that. Because our ego is being fed by doing things. We are attached to the expression. And so we have convinced ourselves that having an impact is something that has to be expressed in this play, in this drama. But the message we're getting from these bold messages is your impact is greater when you're not in the drama, when you've become more subtle. So Baba is saying that now things will accelerate. When Brahma Baba became an angel, things began to accelerate. And there's that role of actions. So Baba is saying that Mama gave cooperation in every way to establish the yajna, and she took it as far as she could. Then Didi and Daddy took it further. So there's a role of words and actions that accumulates blessings for the soul to get to a karmatic state. But then it's actually becoming incognito that enables more service to it. Shiv Baba purifies everything just by being a point. And so our intellect can take convincing that being a point is more impactful than speaking and doing. So I think that this is again this message, this underlining that I'm gaining from these messages is that Baba is serving in an incognito way. He was saying that souls will receive this vision of an angel and they won't know, well, they might not know what this is. Maybe while they're asleep, something comes in their dream. So it's in their subconscious mind, but they don't really know what this is. And then at the right time, moving forward, they might see a picture of Daddy Prakash Muni on the TV. And there's a seed that's been planted in their subconscious. And they will begin to connect. So Baba said, according to their capacity, they'll begin to understand. But at some point, they will recognize that this was that angel. And this is the Father. This is the Father's introduction. So how I find it very interesting how Baba prepares soul's subconsciousness through the subtle. I think all of us have become Brahmins because Baba was working subconsciously for a while previously. And then at the right time, Brahmins become Brahmins. But we can't ignore the subtle region. I think the subtle region is like a collective subconscious among humanity, where Baba is just tapping in and changing things. There was an interesting line from one of the bold messages 2 Thursdays ago, where Baba was saying that although people are beginning to see the signs of some change in the world, they can't quite spot it visibly. But in an incognito way, nature has already begun to change significantly. Governments have begun to change significantly. And communities have begun to change significantly. And I was talking with one professor of sports science last week, and he does research on genetics and molecules within blood, and they look to see whether exercise or diet can change on a molecular level. And he was making me aware that with many illnesses, you can't really, like we usually wait for the symptoms. If something becomes visible, then you go to the doctor. But what they can do by analyzing the molecules in the blood is they can see very early when someone is likely to begin to develop diabetes. So it'll be years before they can actually see it in the blood cells, in the molecules. And so what we're hearing from the subtle region, it's like on a molecular level, the world has begun to change. And it might not be visible to everyone what's going on, but actually it's already fundamentally, structurally changing. And the new is already beginning to get into place on a structural level. So whenever it becomes visible, it becomes visible. But change has happened. Change is happening. So any final thoughts from anyone before?
Yeah, I just remember this Daddy's Day message on Thursday. These messages we are reading are from 2007. Now it's 15 years later. What we read just now, we are seeing in front of us. We are experiencing it, the world. Baba said Dadiji is gone making plans, and everybody science, everybody will go faster. And we are seeing that. But in that message also, if you remember, there were 5 sections, wasn't it? Scientists and devotees, and then other ordinary people. And they were experiencing, and they were asking Daddy that we had always had this desire to do something for the world. So we will help you, but the one I keep on practicing is the love, and I'll revise it again and watch it. But is that Dadiji gave us a gift. Do you remember that gift? To have Baba and me, she gave us a locket and a bangle, bracelet. And in a locket, Daddy said, you all are Baba and me in my locket, and in the bracelet is a bracelet of all the code of conduct, all Baba's Srimad principles, daily routine. Keep checking that, because that bracelet was sparkling and it was in the form of a star. And then Sister Sashiben asked, and she explained that just be aware of Maya and keep checking and have this enthusiasm and deep love for churning and keeping an eye, and keep on, like Lynette Ben said, this she's practicing, and everything there is benefit. But just have that in front of you, because and then your bangle, your bracelet won't get undone, or you won't lose it. You'll become stronger and stronger, and you'll just remember one Baba only. And so look at that message, it's, this last, but this is what, and that helps me to keep an eye on the to see and check myself about Maryadas, about code of conduct. And this is the gift Dadiji has given us all, to keep Baba and me in Baba's heart. Baba in my heart, I am in Baba's heart, and that locket and this bracelet of in the form of a star, but it's a bracelet of all the code of conduct. And so I think that has been just helping me to keep myself in a check.
And maybe sometimes people might have the thought, why would Baba want to create upheaval in the world? And one of the memorials of Shiva is as the destroyer, the cosmic dancer. And they show that the drums of Shiva beat and the whole of the rhythm of the universe begins to turn. And when Shiva dances, the forces of destruction begin to gather, the upheaval begins to gather. So Baba, of course, says that that is yoga. Yoga, when you're in your karmatit stage and then you're having yoga, you're unleashing these powers of creation, sustenance, and destruction. And so Brahma, of course, is the main one. But then Baba's saying that Daddy's also, he's wanting all of us to move on, keep attention, push on with our yoga. Because as the number of the Brahmins are the Shankars, the yogis. And once we connect with Shiva, we become this combined form, Shiva Shankar, the cosmic dancer that creates the upheaval throughout the universe, that makes the earth turn differently, the planets move differently. So this is known as Shiva, the cosmic dancer, and that's how this one cycle shifts into another cycle. That's how the Iron Age ends.
And that's why also I was going to say that look into the swastika. Why there's a, what you call this, like this, and then you put a hyphen, sort of it means it's moving. You just, in Hinduism, you make swastika like that, but then you put a sort of a hyphen, sort of a sign, and that's the must, because then it, we didn't understand in Bhakti, we did it, all this, like, but now Baba explains that.
You put a red dot in each section, and then
also on this sign, and then you put this, means from Satyug, from you will go into the other cycle, and it will turn.
Because you got the soul in each of the ages.
It's like putting a hand in a cycle. Is like a cloak. Baba says it's a cloak for the world and you. And so we put a second hand, like so. Let's search into that more.
Yes, I've taken this up in previous weeks that, what is time? And so Baba explains time means change. That's what time is. It's not it's what is time? It's a thing. The clock is like our inventions of things, but time means change. And that's what the cycle shows.
And Baba gives us a title that you are the clocks for the world. Our Baba has spoken one moodly about that.
When you change, the world changes. So time means change.
But then,
go ahead, Lynette.
I don't think I could explain enough how valuable these chit chats are and how valuable the thoughts on the Murlia daily thoughts. And we are so thankful for this. What I was remembering is another thought on the Murli, I think it was Wednesday, where it was explained that there are different scenarios of silence, and I never heard it before, and it got me to thinking, when you think about silence, you will think about just going completely out of thought. It's not possible, but when you put it in those different stages, it makes so much sense, and you understand it better. You know exactly how I should go about practicing silence and what it will do. And we have to, and just remembering that we are here as servers, as instruments through Baba, and Baba uses us as his instruments to perform action. And if we practice that, and I have been practicing that, whatever I do, I am not doing it. Baba is doing it. And this is not my task, but Baba's task. And it helps a lot. It helps a lot.
Yes.
It takes away all the responsibility of the results. Okay.
Yes, thank you. Well, firstly, one thing I was remembering this week was like we're hearing these messages from the subtle region. So when I was younger, Lady Janki used to say to me that she felt I was a BK in my last life. And that once she said, she was like in meditation talking to Baba, and then she said to me that like when I had gone up to the subtle region like this in my last life, she felt that Baba had given me a gift to be able to explain. And you know, and this was before, I think I was just starting off giving thought. I was about 16, 17. I was just starting off, and she was encouraging me to go to the different sub-centers around London and give the classes. And I think they were very positive. So then she was pleased and she talked with Baba. So I was just remembering that this week, that once you've been given a gift from Baba, you just have to use it. You know, it's not really anything to do with you. And even my Lokik success and income is based on that gift. So Baba gave me a gift that enabled me to have a Lokik income and also spiritual income. And everything is about education. So I just have to use the gift. It's not really any credit to me. He gave a gift, just use it. And then others can benefit. You have a duty to pass on the sustenance you've done. And what can be more important than all of your education? Surely that is the most vital thing at Confluence 8. And then Shailavan is also here in this meeting, and she also messaged me about this topic of the different silences. So as I was saying earlier, you know, you listen to these Murlis again and suddenly it means something different. And I think it was Monday's Murli where Baba was walking us through these different silences. He was, you listen to that Murli and you think, okay, he's talking about the soul is never really peaceful until it's outside of the body. So you have to be free from your body, you have to be bodiless. But then as we experiment, I've been practicing traveling in the soul world. I've enjoyed that feeling. I, the soul, am a rocket, and I can travel through that unlimited universe of the soul world. And we hear from the astronauts, don't we, that they feel such silence as they leave the Earth's atmosphere. And they don't even go that far, but still it's very silent. So how silent must the soul world be? You know, nirvana. And I began to also think, well, is the silence the same in all parts of nirvana? So that's something I'm trying to feel, because some things you can't theorize, can you? You've got to feel them. You've got to practice them in yoga and know them through experience. And then I've been thinking for some years about the silence of God. And like Mama was saying to us the other week, that Shiva is not just a light. He has a mind and intellect. He is a living seed. So then you think, how silent must be the mind of Shiva? This is the ocean of peace. A soul who's never had a waste thought. You know, what was his mind be like? So is the silence of Shiva different to the silence of Nirvana? And is his silence different when he comes into a body down here? Or is it the same as when he's in Nirvana? And then Baba says, silence is the garland around your neck. He always gives that example of that story of the queen who was looking for her necklace and it was around her neck. So inside of the soul, there's also silence. But we know our minds are definitely not silent. The way Baba's mind is silent. And is there a difference then in our silence? That core peace inside of the soul. And then Baba's saying that when you're outside of a body, that's when your mind is really silent. But you've got to practice silence inside of a body. You've got to do it through yoga as well. So there seems like a different silence when our mind is actually being used in yoga compared to when we're in the soul world, when our mind is not being used. So it's a different silence. And then Baba says that the golden age is also the land of peace. It's the land of peace and happiness. So I was mentioning earlier about Jivan Mukti. So it's a different feeling of silence, isn't it? It's a different type of peace. And then, we can have peace in bits and pieces, can't we, in the copper and iron age? Nature, of course, has a lot of peace, doesn't it? And that's a different type of peace. And some places in Bhakti also give us some temporary peace also. So I'm going to leave it with all of you to carry on experimenting. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, but Baba often says that there is no happiness in us in our home with Baba, because we have peace and happiness in Satyug, in Golden Age. There's only dead silence up above in our home, because we'll be just touching and coming down. But in Golden Age, we'll have silence and peace and everything, but we'll be doing everything. We'll be doing art, we'll go to school, then we're teaching. So we'll be visiting each other. So we'll be living, eating, everything. So that silence is a different silence, I suppose.
Yes, so I'd like to leave it with brothers and sisters to churn and experiment. Ranjan Ben's raised another aspect. Is there a difference between dead silence and sweet silence?
Yeah.
So Baba sometimes refers to being in the soul world as dead silence. Sometimes he says sweet silence. How do all of these silences work? Are they all very different? And then another thing I was thinking of this week, as I was churning all these points, so after I recorded that, was, does the silence of the sea echo through the tree? So Shiva is the silent seed. And does his, like in your body, you can feel your neck, you can feel your rib, and you can feel your pulse. And sometimes when you're sitting quietly, you can almost hear it, can't you? Like hear it, you're pulsating. Now your heart is only in one place within the body, but the pulse you can feel. Like it's very unusual that someone would hold their hand to their heart and feel their pulse. You're feeling your pulse, other parts of your body. So in a sense, the tree is also a body, and Shiva is the heart. So does the silence from the sea echo through the tree? We're not the same as the Supreme Soul. Baba is very clear about that. But is his silence echoing through all souls? And sometimes are we catching glimpses of that echo that then pulls us, even in Bhakti? Maybe we're sometimes catching that pulse of silence. So I feel I want to leave it with all of you to churn and experiment. And then a couple more weeks of these messages, and then we'll devote a Saturday session to this topic. And I'll be interested to hear from all of you what your churnings have been and what your experiments have been. Okay, let's stop there for today. So another very rich discussion covering many different topics. So thank you all. I also enjoy this format, makes me think. And have a great week, everyone. And I'll put up, I think there's one more board message today from New York that I can put up. And so enjoy your experiments, and we look forward to seeing you again next Saturday. Om Shanti, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Shanti, Anjan.
So much.
Om Shanti, good morning. Have a good week. Bye-bye. Om Shanti.